Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today, Owning the Room, Insights from Women Leading in Male-Dominated Fields. And I know people are still coming. We've got 94, 95 coming into our webinar. We have over 400 registrations for this webinar, which is amazing. So we're just going to wait for a couple of minutes until most of you are here. And while you are here, please drop in the chat where you're coming from, where you're streaming in today. We're very excited to be hosting this webinar for you today. That's great. We have attendees from Ireland, London, Nairobi, Sudan. Wow, it's definitely a global gathering. Japan, Portugal, Oxford. Good. And while we're waiting for everyone to come through, let me introduce myself. My name is Christine Homoki. I'm one of the senior program consultants in the executive education team here at Said Business School, Oxford. Today I'm proud to present this webinar with a group of incredibly and highly accomplished women, all high achievers in their fields. And today you're also in for a treat because we will be sharing an incredible opportunity for you all, only available for this month of March, for our Empower Her Award. And we'll be talking about that a little bit later towards the end of this webinar. Okay, so I saw that we also have someone from the Philippines. Wow, really, and Madagascar, a real global gathering. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, and now maybe let's go to the next slide and I can just talk about how this webinar is structured today. So this is a panel discussion about a journey of 3 of our incredible alumni. They have all finished executive programs here in the Said Business School with us. And you will be hearing about their journey, about their leadership, and how they have shattered glass ceilings, redefined leadership in their fields, and also the learnings they've learned along the way, they have gained along the way, and how they have overcome challenges in being a female leader in these male-dominated fields. And I'd like to remind everyone before we begin to have their phones ready, because towards the end we'll be seeing some QR codes on the screen, and you can click on or scan those codes so that you can see details of our offerings today. Okay, and now let me go ahead and present our incredible host, Liesl Borrow. So let's go on the next slide. Liesl Borrow is an associate fellow here at the Said Business School, University of Oxford. She is also our program director for our Women's Transforming Leadership program, and she will be hosting our webinar today. Over to you, Liesl.
Thank you, Christine, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to all of our people who are joining us from around the world. I'm delighted to have you here. You can see on screen here our incredible panel members. So I'm going to ask each in turn to introduce themselves. So Bettina, welcome.
Thank you so much, Liesl. I'm Bettina Casgrain. I'm joining you today from just outside Paris. I can see 152 people have joined, so amazing audience. I'm very excited about this. As you can see on the slide, I'm the Global Director of Professional Standards and Sustainability Assurance for HLB International. HLB International is a top 8 worldwide network of business advisors, accountants, auditors, and I'm also an audit partner in COGEP in France, also a very large French firm.
Wonderful, thank you. We're lucky to have you. Lola.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lola Olukwewu. I'm an investor and an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. I own a real estate company here in Nigeria, and we have some touch points in the Caribbean as well. I was in the Oxford Real Estate Program last year, and it was such a wonderful time. I also, I'm a co-founder of Ivira.ai. It's an AI, agentic AI business, which is also focused on solving the problems we have around customer care. I actually, for a hobby, I like to Google a lot because I do a lot of research, and it's really an honor to be here.
Lovely. Thank you, Lola. And Degi.
Right. Hello, everyone. And so I'm Degi by short name, and I'm joining from Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. So I attended last year in the Oxford Bank governance program, and it was a wonderful experience that I had last in my time in London. And so now I work at the Ham Bank. It's the largest bank in the country. It's $6 billion asset. The bank, a very universal bank, has a largest branch network, very digitalized, and that's I'm in charge of the whole business lines, including the retail, SME, corporate banking, international banking. So those digital transformations, those areas I'm in charge of.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks very much. Let's drop the slides now, if that's okay, so that we can concentrate on faces. Thank you to our three incredible panel members who have joined us today to kick around this topic of what it means to own the room. So, are we owning the room? Are we not owning the room? What on earth does that mean? So I'm going to start with you, Lola, if that's okay. So, Lola, what do you think it means to own the room? When have you felt like you are owning the room? And are there any times where you feel like you haven't?
Oh, definitely. I think I'll start with the story of the last time I had to own the room when the room was not ready for me, right? So I was the only female in this huge boardroom filled with men. And I happened to be sitting at the head of the table because everyone was actually waiting to meet with me. So, so imagine the surprise for some of the men who had just thought, oh, Dr. Lola, okay. You know, sometimes they hear your name and the surname, so they don't know if you're male or female. And then I show up and I'm a female. So imagine the look of, wow, so she's a female. And so, you know, I had to come into the room with a lot of presence, and I approached and I announced, you know, my presence by greeting everyone generally and then taking my seat. However, the point where I knew I had completely owned the room was where I was able to speak knowledgeably and intelligently on the same topics they were all bringing. So what I had done before then was to do adequate research. Like I went above and beyond. I had my facts and figures, I had my notes, you know, and so for every question that was posed and for every comment that was passed, it was important for me to respond knowledgeably and respond as, you know, intelligently in quotes, as, you know, the men in the room thought they would. So for me, I think owning the room first starts with you doing the work behind the scenes, so that when you come, you will really come with all of you and you would have that confidence to approach and, you know, confront anything you meet in that room.
Wonderful. So you've got to make it your room before you get there, haven't you? You've got to make it yours to own. How did you tackle that thing about sitting at the head of the table?
Oh, so I kind of knew that I was going to be sitting at the head of the table because I was the one everyone was waiting for. So I had imagined it in my mind, right? And I had also thought about the scenario where I wasn't going to, like, maybe deliberately I was not put at the head of the table. So I had imagined all the scenarios. And I think for us women, we have this unique gift of being able to imagine. And when you have to own the room, or when you're not sure whether you can own the room or not, you need to start using your imagination. So that was what I did. So I'd imagine a scenario where if, for instance, I was going to there was going to be an attempt for me to be relegated, how I would handle it. And then for the instance where I was going to be given the rightful seats, how I was going to handle it. So when I was given the rightful seats, I just assumed the role effortlessly. I didn't make myself feel like, wow, it's an honor, it's a privilege to be here. I made it feel like I have as much right to be here as you all are. And, I was very gracious about it. And, I took my seat, and then everyone, was literally looking, so you can imagine that, you just imagine the picture, like everyone just looking at me. So of course, another thing just to add to that was that I ensured that I dressed the part where I really looked like a boss lady. So yeah.
Wonderful. Look like a boss lady. I should write that down. That's brilliant. Thank you. So you've imagined yourself in there. That's kind of a technique from elite athletes, I understand, that they run their race many, many times in advance. So that sounds like a really good tip or technique. So doing your prep, being gracious about it, imagining yourself in position. Deggy, what does it mean for you to own the room, and how do you go about it?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And so, as I say, the Ham Bank is the largest bank in the country, and this bank is also led by the woman CEO. Myself is number 2, first deputy CEO in charge of the business lines. So, and back to 2021, and the both of us was appointed as a CEO and first deputy CEO of this bank. Until then, 2003 to 2020, this bank always had the expat CEOs and then male CEOs. And so the board decided to have the executive management from the internally. At that time, it was just in the midst of the COVID time. And so the current CEO, Ms. Mufti, so she has a very strong deputy CEO in charge of the HR and finance in these areas. She was a CFO, and then she was appointed as a CEO. And then she asked me to in charge of the business lines along with her. And so at that time, so I was a bit reluctant to take that role, and because throughout my career I was more of like working in the investment banking, international banking, treasury areas, and the macroeconomics, and so those areas that I'm very much the competent, and that I know, that's my field. But then this bank itself was very retail bank, and we service today almost more than 82% of the populations. We have a largest branch network, which is a retail, and the digital one which is a bit far from my knowledge. And so I thought about it, and then decided to take the role. And so the beginning of the 3 months after our appointment, we actually formulated our midterm strategy for the bank, and then to present to the bank. And so the both of us was working like, I think every day more than 10 to 14 hours, just to formulate those strategies. And so, but then we ended up formulating very good strategy, and then as a result, and so at that time, so I had I learned a lot of things. And then although the field itself, digitalization itself, wasn't that much of my strong the area that my knowledge areas, but then still you learn quickly from the different sources, and with the strong support by the board, and as well as the CEO. And then I was able to formulate the strategy, and then the formulating my team with the right skills and then right people. It was after the 3-year strategy, so there were just the evaluating what we achieved was very much almost the 97% we already achieved at that time. It was 2021-2024 strategy, and we made the bank very digital bank. Now it's almost more than 99% of the transactions are happening in the digital channels. And then we introduced also the consumer lending full digital. Now it's 75% of the all this the consumer lending is shifted to these areas, and then we changed it a lot of things. And then I think it's important to have the people who support you there, and then as well as the strong support from the board is very much important. And so I throughout my the life, I was always been the fighter, and so I always try, aspire to learn new things, and I'm never afraid of the things that if I don't know, so I'm never afraid of it, and to show it, and then ask the questions, and that's very important. And then normally when you are in the senior positions, and sometimes you don't need to know everything, so you need to have the right support, right people skills, and then by supporting those people, so along the way you can manage these kind of things, and then you learn. But then those people underneath you usually look into some specific areas, maybe product development or maybe client acquisition, etc. But as the deputy CEO level, you see things more in the broader ways, and then always have the seeing things in broader ways is always you are much more ahead of them. So they see things more narrowly, more specific areas, but then as the CEOs and deputies, you see things more broader ways. That's making it always like to judge things much more the broader perspective, and so that helped me a lot. And so I think I always been like that's not much of like, I'm not that much of low self-esteem person, and so even there's a difficult things that I don't know, and so I always work hard, and then there's a lot of good learning tools, and even there's a ChatGPTs, and then now even it's cooler, and so these kind of things you can learn, and quickly you can improve yourself, and so that's very much important. That's why one of the things that I studied in Oxford Bank program, that the corporate the governance program, was just the continuous improvement of myself.
Well, thank you, Degi. You gave it. Thanks for sharing that story. And you gave us some really important things in there. So, the one that really sticks out for me, there's no obligation to know everything. And that's a really beautiful counterpoint to what Lola was talking about. Be prepared, know your stuff, go into the room. But also when you're there, we don't have to be superheroes and know everything. So learning how to ask those questions is a really excellent way of starting to own that room. So thank you for that, Degi. I'm going to turn to you now, Bettina. I know you've been on 2 programs here at the business school. And one of them is Women Transforming Leadership, where, of course, we start to encourage people to think about what's their toolkit, what's their skill set, what do they bring, but also that almost counterintuitive thing about what are you leaving behind? So what got you here might not get you there. So are you okay to tell us a little bit about what you may have left behind?
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. I think what I had to leave behind, ultimately coming to think about it, is the preconceptions I had about what I needed to be or who I needed to be as a woman. And when you really come to think about it, and that makes me think back of the lady boss. I mean, I would say, what does a lady boss look like? What does a lady boss dress like? You know, I think what I learned in Women Transforming Leadership more than anything else is to say, let's just forget all of this for a minute, and let's just see, okay, what are we bringing to the table? What is very specific to us as an individual, as a person, as a woman? What is our superpower? And how can we actually articulate that? Because, you know, going through the process in a course and saying, where am I today? Where do I want to be? Why do I think I'm the right person for this? What makes me different? What am I really bringing to the table? Not just saying, oh, men are doing it that way, so therefore I'm going to copy and do the same thing. But what is very different from other women, from other men, from other humans? What is my very own, you know, as I said, superpower? Thinking it and saying to yourself, yeah, I know I can do it, I know I'm the right person, is one thing. Articulating it, writing it down, really creating your own business plan is very different. And it's not actually as easy as it sounds. And so once you've got that in place, I think it puts you, it provides a tool to shift from a position where we are passive, where we say, okay, there is a glass ceiling, I want to achieve this, but I can't. We have a whole list of grievances potentially, to one where we're active and where we can say, yes, these problems, they exist. For some of us, maybe more than for others, but I have a toolkit, I have a plan. I can now, I'm actually, it's action versus, you know, just waiting sometimes, maybe waiting for things to change. Now we have a toolkit to really say, okay, I've got a plan. I know where I want to be. I know how to get there. I know what I bring to the table. And I think that in itself almost catapults you in a situation where you automatically own the room because it's very authentic and it's just true for you as an individual.
Did you have to leave anything behind to make space for that new proposition?
Well, I had to, there are several things. I think I had to look at my own behavior. And that doesn't just mean noticing everything that's good, but that also means things that are maybe not so good. And admitting that to yourself is not so easy sometimes. You know, the self-reflection, doing the work internally is a big step. It's sometimes uncomfortable. And I think it has to be to contribute to a better self going forward. Also, you know, I think my perception of what's right and what's wrong, what I'm due, what I owe others has really shifted to say, you know, maybe I have to compromise. Maybe I have to, you know, it's not quite 100% what it should be and what I would like it to be, but we're 75% there. So let's take it and then let's move with that one. And also acknowledging that sometimes male and female, that's across the board. The higher you get in a hierarchy, I think the more you have to accept that what is right and what is wrong is not the only determining factor whether somebody will assist you. It's also, is it actually aligned with their own objectives? Is it a priority for them? And sometimes it's not, and that's okay. And you just have to, I think you have to learn sometimes to, you know, to have a little bit of a thicker skin and just to, you know, let things go and move on.
Good advice, Bettina. Thank you very much for that. What you're talking about there is essentially really paying attention to what is the value proposition of you as leader. One of the programs I'm involved with here at the business school, we actually set an essay, which is why should anybody be led by me? And it is really quite confronting when we take a step back and say, so what is it that I have to offer as leader? And that will evolve and morph and change as we go, which is why it's really useful to keep that at the front of mind about what is it that I do? What do I bring? Why should I be in the room? Let alone owning it. Should I even be in the room? And when you build up that story about this is what I bring, it kind of helps that room ownership, if you like.
And can I just add one thing, which I think is quite important, especially when things don't go the way you want them to go. I'm actually working with a coach, I have been for years, ever since Women Transforming Leadership, Helen Warner, who you will know. And we went through something not so long ago. And I said, oh, this didn't quite go the way I would have wanted. And she said, you know what? Write down all the things that were good about this experience. And the list will be super long. and just be grateful and use those to, you know, to move forward rather than focusing. I think we all, certainly me, have a tendency of, so it's not quite 100%. It could have been better. I could have achieved more. I should have achieved more. Well, let's turn this around and say, hey, there were so many things that were good about this that we completely disregard, and let's focus on those.
Fantastic, thank you. And we have got a bit super today, haven't we? We've talked a little bit about you don't have to be a superhero, but it's quite good to have a superpower. And what's the difference between those two things? So superpower is something that you can offer as part of your leadership value proposition, and things that you can do. Being a superhero is absorbing all of it from everyone all of the time and trying to fix everything, usually leading to something breaking. So Lola, thinking about superpowers, what is it that have you left anything behind as you've evolved as leader?
Yes, I have. I've had to leave behind too much modesty, to be honest. I was that person who would never blow her own trumpet. I just wanted to be, and it's a great thing not to want to. But if you are emerging as a leader, right, who would lead people, then people, you need to be believable. People really need to see what you've done. And so I really needed to start telling my own story. But before then, I mean, I would do such great work and people would want to pull me on and, you know, give me the credit. And I would just say, no, you know, you can just enjoy the limelight and, you know, no, don't worry. I'm a behind the scenes person. That's fantastic as well, right? But as I began to evolve, I saw that there needed to be a limit to the level of modesty I put around my career. If not, I wouldn't be known. The truth is, if I didn't even bring myself forward, maybe to do a course in Oxford, you know, or come forward or just being very expressive about my own opinions, I don't think I would even be noticed. I don't even think I'll have the privilege of being here today. So I think for me, what I needed to, you know, kind of cut down on was just being that person in the corner who would not want to take credit for great work. And the truth is, if you really want to own the room, you need to know how to blow your own trumpet. That is just how the cookie crumbles. That's what I discovered. So being able to, you know, talk about, oh, this is what I've done and this is what I did. And along with the team, this was what we did, you know, when to know how to use the I's and the we's was something I needed to learn and learn very quickly. The other thing was just that shyness about talking. I really need to practice consistently in front of the mirror. Like the me that you're seeing now is not the version of me that started my career. I really needed to, you know, in my mind, and my mind was a very useful tool for me. I would just imagine how I would be, what I wanted to look like, what, you know, how I would move around the stage. I just had to work on my mind. So that shyness, I had to let it go. And then that modesty beyond boundaries, I had to really cut down and put it, you know, within. Of course, there will be times that you don't even need to blow your own trumpet, the trumpet will blow itself, but it is important to know, you know, where to draw the line and when to use which. So those are the two major things I know I had to really let go of, to really be that person that would be in the room and would be owning the room and would be noticed and would have a memory that you won't forget, like, oh, I remember she said this, oh, she made such great points. But if I was that shy person, how would I be able to talk and participate in the conversations? So yes, those two main things were the things I needed to drop quickly.
Brilliant, thank you, Lola. That will stick with me for some time. You know, don't be shy about blowing your own trumpet until the trumpet blows itself. I think that is brilliant. It kind of strays us into the territory of imposter syndrome. I'm going to stick with you for a moment, if that's okay, Lola. I've started to notice that there is an assumption that imposter syndrome is kind of a gendered issue. And in my experience, it really hasn't been. I've been involved in classroom discussions where there's been male members of the group who said, absolutely, it applies to everybody, including me. And I'm constantly thinking I'm going to get the tap on the shoulder. You're in the wrong room. I've also had some quite powerful reactions from some women who say, I reject the notion of imposter syndrome because I've had to work so hard to get here that this is my place. So I think it's too lazy to think, oh, all women have imposter syndrome. In my experience, not true. What's your thoughts on imposter syndrome, Lola?
The truth is, I think imposter syndrome makes its room with those of us who have had one disadvantage or the other at some point. Maybe you grew up with a speech impediment, for instance, and you're now being thrown in the limelight and you need to speak to a public. That feeling of, oh, I don't think I belong here, or I don't think I can do this, would first of all grip you. And, or for instance, you feel unprepared for a role, and then you're just, it's just landed on you or something. That first thing that makes your heart skip, I believe, is that imposter syndrome, where you just feel, oh my goodness, can I do this? Oh my goodness, do I belong here? That is what I think imposter syndrome is. Now, the reason imposter syndrome would now make a home with anybody would be where you actually open the door for it and give it a seat. So every time, even at the start of this, there would be that feeling of, oh, okay, I really need to, there would always be that thing that will make you feel like, oh, I'm going to be speaking with very knowledgeable people. I hope I'm prepared enough. There would always be that feeling, However, back to the point I had also raised, and of course, some of the interesting points that have been raised here as well, adequately preparing, for the roles, or even when you are met with a scenario where this is beyond you, being vulnerable enough, being bold enough to say, oh, I don't know everything. I'm happy to learn from everyone, but I'm here and I'm present and I'm going to be learning really fast. That is you squashing imposter syndrome as well. So ability to really just be authentic to yourself, to be true at every time, and to really just let your realness show will actually let imposter syndrome go to the background. But everyone has that feeling, at least most people, where there would always be that thing of, oh my goodness, is this not too much for me? So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, you created quite a rich image there of a naughty little thing that pops up and tries to distract or derail. I'm going to go to Deggy.
I would like to comment on that as well.
Please.
I think so. If you really wanted to succeed in whatever you're doing in your sector, I think you should leave those kind of like low self-esteem, or like intellectually you're self-doubting, or like you fear of the failure. And if you worry about these kind of things, you will never succeed. And in order to avoid these kind of things, I think you need to learn constantly throughout your lifetime. And you always have to be ahead of the curve. And then you need to understand the things more in the bigger pictures in terms of the growths and opportunities, challenges and risks. And I think that's very important. If you just self-doubting is that's something that always challenges for some people. But the men usually, even they don't know the field, they usually say, oh, generally these things do like this way. But the woman, if they don't know, and so they sit quietly, they don't really participate in the discussion. So now if you really have this kind of like that you're saying, that imposter syndrome, and then if you're not managing these kind of things, I think you will be the hard to succeed, especially in the male-dominated industry. And you have to leave these kind of things behind. You have to be always prepared, even you don't know those fields, and then you shouldn't be afraid of asking the questions. And even it's like very simple the questions, and then you don't know, but then it shouldn't be diminish you to ask or like that making you you just to show them that you prepared, you understand it, and then I think it's the important things. And so like as a first deputy CEO, I in charge of many of those the committees. I run those committees, and then oftentimes the committee make decisions, and then so all of those decisions that we are collectively making, but then eventually as a the chairwoman of those committee, you are ultimately in charge of the whatever the decision making. But then you shouldn't be afraid of those kind of things. And yeah, the important thing is that just need to have the right people, right skills, and those people that should be surrounded. But and then I think that seems like the very much important. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you, Degi. Thank you very much. And before we leave this topic of imposter syndrome, because it is quite important for us to kind of wrestle it to the ground, Bettina, have you had experience of that moment of imposter syndrome, be it the pop-up version or a more systemic version?
Right. I might say something a little bit controversial.
Go for it.
And I'm saying that as somebody, my mother died really early on, and I grew up with my dad. And my dad only had one daughter. So I was brought up as the person who, you know, it's obvious that you have dreams, and it's obvious that you will turn them into reality, and it's normal that you can achieve anything you want to achieve. So that was my upbringing. And I think I was very fortunate in that. So who is around you matters, and how they bring you up matters. But at the same time, I also feel we might be using imposter syndrome a little bit as an excuse sometimes as women. And I agree with what has just been said, you know, it is actually on us to do the work. It's on us to overcome certain things. And I would agree with Lola, you know, the nervousness before I have a speaking event, the doubts, that's all part of the normal stress that is actually good, and that creates a better performance. I don't think that needs to go in the bucket of imposter syndrome. And I think that is sometimes where it lands, and it shouldn't land there.
Brilliant, thank you. I think that's an excellent point. It would be unusual and possibly not very helpful to be devoid of nerves before something that matters and it's really important. It's all part of kind of what keeps us on our A game. That can be different to that, do I own my place here? So thank you for that, Bettina. Bettina, can I stick with you for a minute? Because I think there's lots to be explored in the story about you being raised by your dad. And I want us to start to think about what it means to break barriers. So did you see any barriers? Were barriers there for you, or your upbringing, did that mean that you just saw anything was possible?
I did, to be honest, because my life was with my dad and my aunt, who had a very prominent position, even in the day when I was growing up, like 35 years ago. And the idea that somehow I could not achieve something because I was a girl, that never even popped up. And that's why I'm saying, you know, I think your upbringing matters, and the narrative that you are being fed on a daily basis matters, because, you know, it's what is it influences your belief system. And you know, what I'm very interested in nowadays is at what time in somebody's life, with everything being equal, and I think there are situations, you know, where girls have a lot of opportunities. At what point in their lives do they actually stop believing that? When does that happen, and why does it happen? And how can we you know, get around this? And so I think obviously school plays a part, family plays a part. And when I see how I've got one son, who is now already an adult. He's 19, but when I see how I brought them up and the role also my husband played in this whole narrative that we created for him, you know, that is actually very important. And it will take time to, you know, to move things forward, because it's a long-term process. But I do think, you know, your network matters, your entourage matters, your spouse matters. And we hear a lot about women in my field, should women partners only work 3 days a week? And I was like, well, maybe if they want to, but maybe if they don't, how about we reinforce the idea of having contributions with childcare at home from our husbands, from our son, and that will create equality. I don't think we're advancing women's, you know, chances by saying, oh, let's give them more time off. So, you know, I think it's a long-term project, as it were, a societal project, and a project where we have to involve our sons, we have to involve our husbands, our spouses, absolutely everybody.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bettina. Dr. Lola, I'm going to come to you in a second. I'm going to continue this thought about breaking barriers. And what occurs to me is that when we find ourselves in a position where we feel like we're breaking barriers, we're the first at something, or we are unusual in our environment, there's almost like an obligation to help others achieve the same things. And as an entrepreneur in the tech field, you really kind of stand out for me. So have you felt that obligation to help others, and how do you manage that for yourself?
Okay. The truth is, every time I think last week or so, I was privileged to be in a panel where I had to speak also about this. And one of the things I said was that it gets really lonely at the top, in quotes. You know, I'm not saying like I'm really, you know, but I'm saying when I'm further along compared to some other women. And the truth is, there is always that feeling of, oh no, I shouldn't be the only one here. Oh no, I shouldn't be the only one doing this or saying this, you know. So there's always that strong sense of obligation to pull others along, and which has now inspired my strong desire to start like a school for AI, which is really going to take on in the coming days, you know. So there is a strong need for mentorship and sponsorship amongst us women. I mean, for instance, if you're in the room maybe out of 10 people in the room, there's just maybe 1 or 2 women. Number one, you need to represent that seat properly, if there's anything like that. But the truth is the truth. You know, there's always just that inequality thing going on. And for us to measure up and at least have some degree of parity, we need to continue to tag one another and support one another. And so you need to represent that seat properly and then find a way to replicate that seat. So, and that is where being able to get others to, you know, to come on board. That is where it go, you know, that's where we are. So what I have done, or what I do whenever I have this feeling, is to look around me first and foremost. Who are those who are really trying amongst, you know, like in my circle, females, maybe younger ones, or those ahead, or those at par? What can I do to, you know, just encourage them or to add to what they're doing without them feeling like, you know, there's a savior mentality thing going? No, but what can I do to just encourage, you know, those coming? So I always ask myself that question, and I always identify what clear solutions I can bring. It could just be a tip or just a link. Oh, I think you should do this training. Oh, I think this would be good for you. I did it and it's helping me. I think it will help you too. So those little things here and there really go a long way in. And that was some of the things I experienced as well. Someone pushing a link along, you know, to me, talking to me, for instance, about this real estate program I did at Oxford was what got me there. So just being able to encourage people, you know, especially us women, and not feel that adjusting someone else's crown will make yours fall off. No. And lighting someone else's candle does not turn out yours. So just being there for others will always make a difference.
Lovely, thank you. And that puts me in mind of the word that you used earlier about being gracious. And I
Yes.
think that there is a strong place for that. We have some questions coming in from the participants, one of which is about scholarships. Just to let you know that there'll be a few moments at the end where Christine's going to talk about potential scholarships and other opportunities here at the business school. So just to let you know, we've noted the question, and we will come to that. I'm going to change gear again, if that's okay. One of the most impactful conversations that I have been part of in the last 5 years was actually not in the business school setting at all. And it was actually when my daughter went to senior school, and all of the parents of these bright 11-year-olds came into the room, and the head teacher said, I'm going to encourage you to think about the woman your daughter will become. And think about the 22-year-old. The purpose of that advice was, don't stick in the moment where things might be a little bit chaotic or there's momentary issues, but think of the bigger picture. Think of where your girl will be at 22. And it was the most impactful conversation for me, because it kind of put me on a temporal plane where I was looking ahead to her being 22, but I was also thinking about, well, who was I at 22? And what would I say to my 22-year-old self if I could have a conversation with her? So that's the question I'm going to put to all three of you. I'm going to start with Deggy. Deggy, if you were to meet your 22-year-old self now, what advice would you give to her?
All right. So I think myself very much doing what I'm dreaming, and because I'm a third generation of banker in my family,
Wow.
so it's always been I will work in a banking sector, and my dad was also it was in banking, and so it's just surrounded by those people. So I know that I will go banking and finance, and so I think throughout these years, so what I learned is never stop learning. So that will make you always the make you put ahead of everyone, and so I was always had the good thing is you always need to have the good management and as well as mentor. And I'm very fortunate that I had always got the good management. The previous CEOs were quite very supportive management who always challenged me and constantly. So whenever I in charge of the one areas, and then I make that the areas to succeed, and then always put me in the next level, and then challenge me again. So that really made me to help now become the #2 position in the banking. And so I think it's important that you have that's a good mentorship, and to help you the providing the invaluable guidance and support, and that's very important. And then you also need to have the professional connections, and so that's very important as well. And so always think to see things in more like bigger pictures. So don't go to the very narrow detailed things, and then see things more in the bigger pictures, and then after that go in the detail is much better. So when it started with the detailed areas and then go to the app is very difficult. So like my career started with the central banking, and then the macroeconomics and the micros, and then financial analysis. Those kind of things were like the best, which I was very good at it. So now when it comes to the narrowing down to the digitalization, retail banking, and then it was so much easy for me to see things more in the bigger picture. So that's that will I would say. And then thanks to my dad's good mentoring at home, and so I'm exactly doing what I should be doing. And so
Brilliant, thank
yeah.
you. There is definitely a place for dads and wise dads here today, isn't there? So you're talking about notice connections, mentorship, guidance, and keep the bigger picture. Bettina, if you were to go and have a conversation with your 22-year-old self, what would you say to her?
I think I would have been more cheerful and less rigid and less black and white, as I said. At the time, I was very, it's fair, it's unfair, it's right, it's wrong. Every battle has to be fought. And I just saw a message about, it's perceived as weakness to walk away. Nowadays I would say, sometimes, save your energy, walk away. Not every question or every fight needs a response. Sometimes walking away from things in a gracious way is also, it's also a response, and sometimes it's a good one. And I think what was mentioned earlier, being a little bit more proud, a little bit better at selling myself and my achievements, that is something that took me a long time to do. And I think if I had learned that a little bit earlier, who knows? But being proud of yourself, not in a bad way, not but in just happy with your achievements and confident talking about them. That's what I would tell myself.
Thank you, Bettina. There's always room for more cheerfulness in the world, I think. So thank you for that. And Dr. Lola, what would you tell your 22-year-old self?
Okay. Interestingly, I have a lot to tell my 22-year-old self, but I'm just going to keep it as brief as possible. I think the first thing, just like I had said before, was, I was really just this person who wouldn't want to take credit publicly, and I had to really snap out of that. And it was not so long ago, I actually succeeded in snapping out of it completely, almost completely, because these days I still, want to hide from time to time. But yes, number one thing I would tell my 22-year-old self is be bold and learn to blow your own trumpet and blow it early. Because the earlier you start, especially in this age that we're in, the better for you. The second thing I'll say is you have to stay true to yourself. There would be one person you will meet on this earth that would give you an impression that you're not enough, or you can't do it, or it's not for your kind. Don't listen. As long as it's something that is a burning desire and you have the staying power, to see it through, go for it. Go for it with everything you've got, right? Then, I've seen some of the comments as well, and truly these are our realities. For us women, sometimes we want to be deemed, people don't want us to be visible and all of that. In fact, is one of the reasons I'm an entrepreneur. If the opportunities are not being created for you, create your own opportunities. Be so good at what you do that you are unmissable and you cannot be downplayed. Be so good, be so valuable that they would want to come and look for you. And even I've seen scenarios where from the person's body language, I could tell the person was not really into me, like, oh, I don't like you, but I just like the value you offer. And, and that's a good starting point. You don't need to like me at first. And you don't need to think I belong on that table. It doesn't matter what you think, as long as I know I'm bringing so good a value that you cannot resist it. So I think for my 22-year-old self, I would say continue to push, be so resolute in your vision, in your dream, and ensure that you're not put down. And the final thing I would say, is that it's very important for us to always be kind to ourselves. You see, the world is filled with a mix of different people. But if you now find negativity out there, and then internally as well, you're not kind to yourself, then what hope do you have? So for my 22-year-old self, I would say be kind, keep being kind to yourself, speak good things to yourself in the mirror, talk to yourself and begin to psych yourself if there's anything like that. Like continue to psych yourself that you're so good, that you will do well, and that you're good at this. If you fail, get up. Failure is success turned inside out. If you fail, get up. You will be successful at some point. Yeah, those are all of the things I need to say.
Lola, that is just marvelous. Thank you. And I'm going to reluctantly have to draw this to a close now. But if I think about the advice we are collectively giving to our 22-year-old selves, you know, be bold, be cheerful, see the big picture. Not everything's a fight. Get a trumpet, blow it. I think that advice could also serve as well in moments of transition as we get further along in our career, like what next and where next. Taking that pause, a deep breath, and becoming the leader we want to be from now and in the future will get us to that next stage. So I want to say a huge thank you to our 3 panel members today. And then I'm going to hand over to Christine, who's got some news for us about future programs. So Christine.
Thank you so much, ladies, for that heartfelt and energizing discussion. It's so great to see all the lovely comments in the chat as well. Our audience is resonating with all your sharing. So thank you so much for that. I have mentioned this earlier at the beginning of this webinar. So we have a couple of amazing offers for you, ladies. We are celebrating International Women's Month this month of March. Yeah, we're still in March. And as part of the celebration, we are bringing to you a very special opportunity called our Empower Her Award. And this is something that we are offering to you, that we are introducing for any woman who is in the leadership positions and would like to have greater sense of empowerment in whatever field you are in. And this award is available for 3 specific programs that are traditionally male dominated. So this is open to female professionals and leaders applying for the Oxford Real Estate Program, Oxford Bank Governance Program, and Oxford Program on Negotiation. And there is a QR code here, which you can scan on your phone. And I am also going to send the link on the chat if you'd like to know more details. So if you join this award, you can receive 25% to 50% on the program fees. And all you need to do is to apply for the specific program that you're looking to join and submit a scholarship statement. We will review that in the beginning of April, and we will let you know if you have been selected. And let's go to the other slide now. These are the dates of these programs that the award is valid for. The Oxford Program on Negotiation in June, 9 to 13th of June. The Bank Governance Program, 16th to the 20th of June. And the Real Estate Program on the 30th to the 4th of July. And you will see another QR code here for an exclusive 10% women's exclusive discount. And this is only available for the audience today. So this is an exclusive offer for you. And this is valid for the Women Transforming Leadership Program. So you don't need to apply for scholarship to get this discount. This is available for you now, and you can scan this code if you are interested in joining this program. So that answers the question about the scholarship and the discount. Okay, and if you have any further questions about any of these programs, you can get in touch with myself, or my colleague Clara is also here in the background. Feel free to reach out to us and we'll help you with your application and any information that you need about any of these programs. We're also sharing this slide about the contact details of our wider team, including myself, Clara, Nayas, and Sarah. And together we look after the cohort curation for these programs that have been mentioned today. So Clara looks after the real estate program, Neas is your contact for Women Transforming Leadership program, and Sarah is the contact for the bank governance program. So I think it's time to wrap up now. I'm going to give it to Liesl in a moment, but it has been an incredible hour spending this time with you, incredible women from all over the world. I hope you have enjoyed listening to our amazing panel and that you have received a lot of wonderful nuggets of wisdom from our speakers. And thank you, Liesl, for your skillful hosting and moderating as always. Over to you.
Thank you, Christine. And all that's left to say is a huge thank you to Degi, to Lola, Bettina. I have captured your pearls of wisdom, and I'm hoping that I will get the opportunity to share that a bit broader in the future. So thank you so much. Keep in touch. You are now part of the SBS family, and long may it remain. Look forward to seeing some of the participants at our programs in the future. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.